Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my third sequence in my blind beta playthrough run thing. I was kicked out again on the previous video, if you're wondering. So I decided to pick this class, which he's called the Northern Warrior, and he actually turned out to be my favourite build in the demo. At the time, I wasn't best pleased. I just picked him and I was like, okay, guy's got an axe, guy's got cool looking armour. I'm a big fan of this Ember effect, which is essentially humanity. I want to jump over this wall, but it's just not letting me, because I wanted to kill myself to see if you could, because that's the type of thing that happens to me a lot. So I wanted this guy to kill me, because I was experimenting to see about the difference between humanity form and non-humanity form, because I noticed this guy had a lot more life than my previous dude did. So I let these fellas kill me, and then if you look at my life, it's a fantastic example of the difference between Ember form and normal form. You see how it trimmed the potential there of my life bar? It takes about, what would you say that was, like 15%? Something like that? And that also happens when you invade. You lose an extra percentage of HP when you invade, so if anybody's familiar with the way that Demon Souls handled invasions, you'll be very familiar with that. Which, I don't really like prejudiced against invaders, although I do understand it. And this is me doing the one thing you're not meant to do in Dark Souls, because I want to get back to where I was, because I'm kind of frustrated at this point that I can't play. And I somehow managed to, you know, straight up speedrun that bit, which was nice. And does this guy cockblock me? He doesn't. He lets me through. That never happens. And then I come up here, so I can hit the bonfire that we were at before the game kicked me out. And I think I'm going to get chased here, because I don't sit at it yet. I'm going to get chased. So we have a thief, and we have one of the armoured knights. This is a really bad spot to be in, just because of how good that armoured knight is when it comes to killing you. And at this moment in time, I've got my Dark Souls skills and my repertoire thereof to guide me here. But this is a different game, and it does feel different in a lot of ways, and those ways are tricky. I think the thing that... You see that right there? When that happens to you, you can be guard broke criticaled. The AI doesn't seem to do it to you, but humans will. You're going to notice in my PvP, there it was again, I do that all the time to people, but I don't crit them, because I didn't realise that was the animation for guard break. I just thought that meant that you'd run out of stamina, which is essentially what guard break is, I guess, when you're blocking. But this guy gives me the leniency to run away and heal. I'm trying to backstab him, which is kind of working and kind of not. Something worth knowing is you can hold your shield up and still backstab. It's not like Dark Souls 1 where you had to drop it to do it. So you're going to be able to do that, and it means that you can be safe all the way up till you get to their back and do the backstab, which is really good for people that are using rapiers or spears, because of course you can poke safely from behind your shield with that. And I'm not going to say I looked down on spears, but I used to think that they were kind of cheesy. In this game, I love them. I absolutely love them. And I don't know why I was so judgmental against them before and never really experimented too much with them, because I did some PvP with the assassin class on this, and I was really liking the spear. And I don't know if it's because I started playing Street Fighter, so I look at the PvP slightly differently in regards to spacing and timing and baiting people and reading and things like that. But the spear just seems like that perfect weapon. It seems like a really, really good weapon, and I just booby trapped there, but we'll survive. There's a nice jump attack. If you do a running R2, you generally do the jump attack. Really nice addition. You can also do it with the back step, which I like to experiment with. And then of course we have the creature here, which I'm going to run past, and you don't have to kill him if you don't want to. A tip to killing him quickly is to kill him before he transforms. If you buff your weapon, you can generally one-hit him before he transforms, and he's not an issue whatsoever. When he does transform, he gets a whole bunch of real nasty passives that make him a pretty intimidating foe, and he's got stupid range, really high damage, he's a whole bunch of things combined. But this is new territory, so be careful of this corner. As you can see, there is a lady that's waiting to rally the troops, and then there's a firebomb throwing guy, who is pretty much your generic Souls game firebomb thrower. He's dangerous if you let him, and he's a pussy if you get up in his face. But we also have another one of those wandering knights. In here is a thief, but I haven't noticed. There he was. I wonder if they can backstab you in this game. I assume they can, because it's kind of like a Souls staple. he didn't, and I'm really grateful for that. And there are moments when this game keeps its frame rate pretty well, all considered, and then there are times when it just really, really doesn't. And once again, we have to bear in mind, this is a unfinished version of the game. This is a network test. It's a very small chunk of the game, and a lot of the things that you can criticise might not work that way when the game fully comes out. I'm hoping the frame rate's going to be 60 and we're all going to fall in love with it, but I just don't think it is. Somebody left a comment saying that they don't really mind their Souls game in 30 frames per second, are they crazy kind of thing, and I tried to explain to them the benefits of 60 and why they should want it, but I also tried to explain that your eye is the best camera we own. Like, there are no cameras on this planet that do what the human eye does as quickly or as well. It's a goddamn mastery of machinery, and what it does is it interpolates the footage. It fills in the gaps, and if you play a game that has a shit frame rate for long enough, you'll stop seeing it because you'll get used to that shitty frame rate and it'll just become natural. However, if you go to a game that has a very high frame rate, for instance, if you went to a PC game and you had 120 frames per second, it would hurt your eye. It would put strain on your eye because it's functioning in a very specific way, and this new version is way faster than what you've been using before. It's like 3 times faster. So it would take you a while to adjust, and you might feel eye strain, you might feel tired. A whole host of the adverse effects can be ailed, but you will get used to it. Which is why, if you play a game that is fast-paced and high frame rate, that is steady and constant, if you go to something that doesn't have it, you will notice it immediately. But if you're the type of person who plays games once a week, and you only play it for half an hour before you go out with your friends and have a drink or whatever, you're not going to see it. You might feel something weird, but you're probably not going to be able to put your finger on what it is. And people don't understand the importance of frame rate because they don't understand the mechanical impacts it has on gameplay. There are a whole bunch of people who do, and those people generally are the ones who speak out for it. But the thing that you need to just realise, when you get right down to it, is the better the frame rate, the better your responsive nature will be with the controls. The less input drops you'll get. When you press that button, you have twice as many frames for that to work, for it to register, for it to come out, for it to attack. The higher the better. And at this moment in time, the consoles that we're playing these games on are not very adept at hitting high frame rates just yet. And they're choosing resolution over frame rate because it's the lowest common denominator. You will wow more people, and they're aiming this at essentially the biggest market, which is not the hardcore players, it's not the people who, play the fucking games, it's the people who look at it in-game and go, that might be good to pick up in 10 years from now. They're aiming it at that person who doesn't play games, that casual market of, more, better. And higher resolution is the thing that's going to appeal to those people because they're looking at it, it looks pretty, they want to buy it. They don't care how it performs. They don't care that you have, an extra 4 milliseconds worth of delay on your hits, because that's just not what they're playing the game for. So, at the moment in time, the systems are stressing this high resolution, which, for me, I'd go 720, 60 every day. I don't need higher resolution. Well, that is a lie. Before we had high def, resolution was horrendous. You didn't realise it because it was the pinnacle of technology at the time, but you go back and it hurts. It hurts so much. It's so blurry. That is fantastic. But when we get to the point where the difference is nominal, like, I'm not talking the difference between, because you can tell the difference between your PC monitor and your TV. Like, there is a big difference because your TV's pushing, 1080? Your monitor might be pushing 1900 or even higher depending on if you've got like an expensive one, like a 4K monitor. There is a definite improvement in quality there, but we're just not there yet when it comes to this ubiquitous spread of that technology. In 10 years, 4K might be the equivalent to like VHS, we don't know. And everyone will have it, it's super cheap, it's the standard for the industry. But right now, I think 720 looks perfectly fine. It does everything I need it to do, and if you can get 60 frames per second, I'll be so much more happy. But this has become like technical TV, and people want me to talk about Dark Souls 3, so I backstab this dude with my buff, and then my buff runs out because the buffs don't last very long again. I tried to do a cheeky chain stab, but I don't have the positioning, and then I put my torch on because you have to toggle through your items to get to the one you want because they didn't let us in the menus because they're evil. Why from? I'm almost certain that you could go through the menus on Dark Souls 2 in the beta. Why did they hide it in this one? And it's been a long time since I played that beta, and I could just stop this video now and check my videos and get my answer. But I'm not going to. I'm going to, swing with the wind. I'm just going to go for it. Caution gone. But down here is an ugly looking dog rat thing, and then there's a key that's going to unlock the second challenge of the beta, or the network test, which is an enemy known as the Frost Knight, and he is the most difficult enemy in the entire beta. However, a lot of people are calling it a boss, and it's not a boss, guys. It has no HP, it has no fog door, it's just a really douchey enemy. And it's douchey because it's like weirdly broken. It has this ability to do tons of swings when you don't think it should. It's always on you, so it gives you very little chance to heal, because it's an enemy that's designed to punish healing. It'll hit you twice. 3 times tops, maybe. Then it'll wait, and then it'll come and attack you again. And that's what it does. It's designed to bait a heal, and then it punishes the heal. So you want to try and avoid that if you can. And you can't backstab it, I don't think. You can parry it, but you can't riposte it. It's just a douchey enemy. It's an enemy that has all the advantages and almost none of the weaknesses. And it also does... It's not the best room to fight it in, because you don't have all that much room to space it or to position yourself, because it's really up close and personal. And it's tough. It's fast. It's way faster than you think it will be. It's got stupid range. It's got a ton of horizontal swipes that hit you regardless of your roll sometimes. All kinds of bad stuff. But this is my first encounter with the Executioner, I think he's called, the Winged Executioner. There's a bit of lore in the game that says beware of a Winged Executioner, and this guy does have those little wings on his back. And I would liken this dude to the hooded executioners from Bloodborne, and maybe to, you know, like the Knights of Berenice or the Royal Sentinels from Dark Souls. He is an enemy that looks really big and really intimidating, but he's actually a bit of a bitch. Big old cream puff when you know how to fight him, but at this moment in time, I was scared of him. I was like, this guy's going to really, really hurt, because this is a network test, and they usually have the difficulty really inflated. And it turns out it wasn't for this. So I throw an alluring skull to try and lure him into the fire. The fire will stun him, but he just doesn't give a shit. He couldn't care less. And because I haven't found a bonfire yet, and I don't actually know the length of this area, I have trepidations about going down and fighting him. Right now, with the experience I now have, I would have not even come this path. I would have just jumped off the roof, because there's literally no need. And you can backstab this guy. And as soon as I learn you can backstab him, it becomes a different story, because you can chain stab him too. And when he casts his Wrath of God, crazy call from beyond, or whatever it's called in Bloodborne, you can interrupt it with a backstab too. And I think I want to do a plunge attack, but I'm scared. See that? Look at that nonsense. That is the running attack from Dark Souls 2 with the halberd, and he has it. The good news is, the balancing on the damage is perfectly fine. I thought that was going to be a one-hit kill if you had full life, because it'd just keep you in that animation, hit you 5 times, and you were dead. Turns out it does no damage. It's super neutered, which is really kind of them. However, you know, I want none of it. I want a safer approach. I want to hopefully see some new things, and I don't want to die. Got some really nice atmospherics happening there with the fog, or the mist, and then you can see the dust being kicked up by my footfalls, which is always cool to see. Lots of nice sound design, very reminiscent things. Like, it makes me laugh, you know, when people say that this game is just using assets from Bloodborne, and that's really disappointing. Every Souls game has used assets from the previous one. It uses the entire same audio library. It uses so many things. Like, mechanically, they're almost identical. I don't understand why people are so quick to be like, oh, it's using the same thing. Like, look at the dredges, I think they're called. I forget the name of them. The creatures on the first level, Boletaria, Demon Souls, their entire moveset was given to the Hollows. It's identical. They're the same enemy, they just look a little different. They're almost straight up fucking Final Fantasy palette swaps. It's what they are. But nobody says bats an eyelid there. Yet, this uses a couple of assets that were inside of Bloodborne, and it's suddenly this big bad thing, because apparently being similar to Bloodborne is the worst thing you can do, because Bloodborne's this terrible game. And all the people who think that are fucking idiots, like straight up. And I mean that, I really do. It's not one of those things where I'm just saying it to joke and poke at people, but objectively, even if you don't like Bloodborne, even if you think it's a bad game, you still have to accept it functions exactly as it was intended, and it's objectively a solid game. Like, I knock tons of games that I don't like. Destiny. Fucking hate that game. Objectively, without my bias, that game is a fantastic shooter. I have problems with everything else, but just as a game, when you shoot things, it feels great, and it works. Everything else is do you like that kind of game? Do you like the way that it's set up? Do you like how it's structured? But it's pretty to look at, it runs well, it's got great shooting mechanics. Intrinsically, that is a great game from gameplay perspective. That's when you completely remove how you feel about it. And it's the same with Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a wonderful looking, wonderful playing, very dark, interesting adventure game. So for these people who are just like, oh, it's a piece of shit, or I don't want it to be like that, I want classic Souls back, or this or that, I just think it's super ridiculous. And it's the same thing with Dark Souls 2, when everyone's like, oh, I hope it's not like Dark Souls 2, because Dark Souls 2 is a piece of shit. Like, it's not, guys. It really isn't. Just remove your stigma and look at it with fresh eyes. And I know it's really tough to do, because I hate Dark Souls 2. I was playing it last night, and I was like, this is so awful. I don't like this game. But then I remove myself from it, and I look at it, and I'm like, this game is massive. It's got solid combat. It's got all these different areas, all this different diversity, all these different weapons, all these traipses from this Soul franchise, and it puts its own spin on it, where it's kind of familiar and really different in other areas, and boom, it's exactly what it is. And objectively, it's a great game. So you can't do it. And it seems really fun to bang on the last thing, like, and I really don't respect it at all, because the game's not even out, dudes. This is not out yet. This is pretty much the first real good look we've had at it. I got to play this. You're watching me play right now. And I had no excitement. I couldn't care less. I really couldn't. Dark Souls 2, about a week before the first beta was scheduled, which I thought I was going to get to play, and it turns out I didn't get to play because of network constraints, I was so excited I couldn't sleep. I was like a kid at Christmas. I was literally like the 9-year-old version of me. It was horrible, but wonderful at the same time. It was this innocence, this pure beauty. And I'll never get that back. I just won't. And it took me like 3 attempts to get into that beta, because getting in network, like, it took forever. Some people just never got in, some people did. It was a horrible experience. And it took place as well at about 5 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the morning, I think it started. And every time I tried, I stayed up all night. So I have this awful experience coupled with sleep deprivation, just general fatigue, where, I don't know about your folks, but there are times when I'm tired, I'm just not a very nice person to be around. You know, especially when I'm getting pissed off. A lot of the time I'm fine, but when I'm getting pissed off and I want to do something and I'm all deflated and I was super excited, so I'm having a big adrenaline dump, it's just the worst mindset to be in. It straight up is. It's the pits. And that's what I got with that game. But then when I got in it, I was really excited and I recorded it and that, and I killed the first boss, and, you know, I noticed how the movement was completely different and I didn't like it, and I noticed a few things that, you know, it just didn't kind of feel like Dark Souls 1, but it still kind of felt Dark Souls-y. And then I killed the second boss, and then I killed a few enemies, and then I tried some PvP, and I was kind of done. Like, I had, I think, about an hour and a half left, and I was pretty much done with it at that point. But I kept playing until it finished. And then I was, you know, I had concerns for when the game came out, and then the game came out, and I had a ton of fun with it, and then I fell out with it. And I find it really tough to go back now. It's still a fun game, and there are times when I kind of have a lot of fun with it, but I just have issues with that game. And then this gets announced, and it's nothing. It stirs nothing inside me. Bloodborne, I got really excited, and I really, really enjoyed Bloodborne, but I got to the point where I think there's just kind of been too many Souls at this point. There's been too many of these games too close together. Dark Souls 2, less than a year later, Scholar. Less than a year later, Bloodborne. That's 3 Souls games in the space of a year. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. And these are games that, previously, I would delve into them, and I would play them for very long periods of time. And because they're very similar mechanically, you're playing a very similar game, even though it's different in a ton of ways and it's still amazing. You're playing something very familiar, and I think it can be easy to feel burnt out, or it can be easy to feel like you've done this before. So, as much as I played the shit out of Bloodborne, and the only reason I stopped playing it is because of Witcher 3 came out, and I had to cover that for YouTube, Like, that's the only reason I stopped, and I would have still been playing it probably every day. But then I found it tough to go back because I was really busy with projects for the channel and all that kind of good stuff. So that when Dark Souls 3 got announced, I was like, that's cool, and they're like, Miyazaki's helming, and I'm like, yeah, that's still cool. But I had nothing. I had truly nothing. No pit in my stomach, excitement, no like gasps, nothing. And that's why I've not covered it, guys. That's why I've not put these videos up, because I got so excited for Dark Souls 2, and it ripped my heart out, you know, 3-4 weeks after release. When, you know, I couldn't overlook the issues with it anymore, and we started arguing, and then, you know, she was sleeping in a different bedroom, and we were seeing our friends a lot more, and, you know how it goes. You've been through that. And then I got in this beta, and then I played it, and I've got to admit, for a while, I was kinda, like, I think I've done everything in this beta. I don't have to play it now. I want to do more stuff. This feels cool, and it feels familiar, and it feels awesome, and it's definitely a step in the direction that I want. By the way, Red Eyes Knight. This guy has red eyes, just like the wolves in Bloodborne, just like the knights in Demon Souls. And he is, I think, a tougher enemy, so this is going to be a mechanic. No idea what it means, but I'm so happy to see it. And yes, rollback stabs are definitely a thing. But there was a moment where I didn't get the itch to play, even though I had access to it, and I felt kind of bad, because one of my subscribers had sacrificed his own code to get me into this thing, and I was taking it for granted, and I felt like a dick, you know, just, why am I feeling this way? But that's how I felt. And that was only the first test, and I was just like, I'm going to keep playing though, keep on playing, and at the time I didn't have any PlayStation Plus to invade, and if I had, my opinions would have changed immediately. But just from a PvE standpoint, it felt good, but it felt really close to Dark Souls 1 in as much as I felt like I was having not necessarily too simple of a time, but I didn't see much that I had to learn. And when I'm not learning in a game, I get bored. And I wasn't bored. This is sounding like I hated my time with this, and that's not the case, but I had really mixed feelings. Like, it felt great, it looked great, I was having a ton of fun doing things, but when I'd done all the areas, when I'd killed the boss and the night guy and everything, I just kind of felt like I'd done it, if you know what I mean. And then the second test, something just clicked. You know, when I knew where I was going, and I was kind of going back through the areas and discovering things, and then finding new techniques and learning new stuff, something just kind of clicked where I got that hunger to be like, I could play this a lot. I'm getting that old Dark Souls 1 feeling again. And it just came. And then on the third test, I remembered that a guy called SDR, an awesome subscriber of mine, had given me an English month of PlayStation Plus for Bloodborne to do some invasions. But I have Bloodborne on an American account because I downloaded it from the American store, and it doesn't work on my English account. I'm going to continue this in the next video, guys, because this is the boss. So look at that statue. There is so many Artorias-esque motifs in this area. It's crazy. They're really going to be harping on some of the old lore, the Knights of Gwyn, you know, that whole ethos. I think it's going to be great. And then we have this, which, if you look at it, I didn't notice it at all at first. Because I thought, this motherfucker looks like Artorias. It looks like Jelly Artorias. Because the armour is straight up Artorias' armour, it looked like to me. And then somebody, I think, left a comment on a video I was watching. Because halfway through this fight, the boss pulls out a second sword. And you notice how that sword is on fire? It's almost orange. The second sword was dark. And everyone's like, this has got to be, you know, Kieran or Siren, I forget how you say that person's name. And then I realised that maybe Artorias' armour wasn't unique. Maybe all the Knights of Gwyn had a very similar armour. And then when you put all these kind of together and you speculate, this could be like Kieran if she got twisted and went hollow. Maybe, you know, followed into the abyss, and this is what she ended up coming out looking like, all fucked up and weird and ganky. And this is a really interesting boss fight. This boss has a lot of animations, and in the first 2 to 3 phases, I think it's incredibly fair. The third phase is dog shit. That is an AoE, Chris, get away. Good lad. If she grabs you and she does that move afterwards, it can sometimes be unavoidable. That is the jump. It's got a bit of an AoE on it, but it's not too bad. On the 3rd to 4th phase, she follows that up with a spin attack. Very dangerous. But my problem with this boss even though I think it's amazing and I had a ton of fun fighting it, is that it has a ton of horizontal swipey moves, which whenever you give a boss that in a Souls game, you're going to have hurtbox and bad hitbox issues. It's just how it works. The grab detection is god-awful, but you can learn to exploit that. Look at the damage too, really big damage on that grab. And then in the third or fourth phase, final phase of the fight, the boss can infinitely combo you. It can go from a 6-hit combo into a 6-hit combo before you've had time to attack or even get away. So there are just these really unlucky... That's a really fast charge attack. Knew it was coming, still hit me. And the thing with it is, you might never see it, but if you do, you're going to know exactly what I mean. And it's that Flame Lurker thing of, if you get an awkward AI pattern where the Flame Lurker knocks you down and it does the jump attack where it knocks you down again, very reminiscent of Gascoigne transformed when he does it. Only on that game you can recover, and on Demon Souls I don't know if you can. There's a grab again, got me again. Knew it was coming, dodgy detection. Thank you very much. But it's just, you get that rough pattern where she decides to do multi-hit combos in a row. It's very difficult to dodge. They're all horizontal, they've got tons of range. It can be really, really challenging. There it was. And then the next thing that makes this challenging, that will hurt you residually, so be careful. It's the first part that does it. Then on the next phase, she does another AoE as she's pulling it out, so there's 2 AoEs, so it lures you in false sense of security, punishes you anyway. And now we get the double hits. So now she's going to start extending combos and doing crazier moves. And this is where it gets tricky, because all the moves you've seen can now be augmented. And it all depends on your positioning or if she hits you with them. So there are times when it looks like she's going to do one hit and you've got to punish, and she does another one. And then there are times where you see the move, you don't attack because she thinks she's going to punish, and then she doesn't. That is a spinny weird move that does a residual fire attack. And this is the beginning of the spinning move, and the spinning move lasts almost randomly. Sometimes it's really short, sometimes it's really long. I don't really know the factors on that move. But, of course, getting behind the boss is a real good strategy, but every so often she'll throw a move at you that you've just not seen before. And she does have a pretty good ass. People have been mentioning, I'm only just realising. That is a pretty good Ultimus Maximus. But, Hair of the Fire destroyed. Got it on my first attempt, but I used all my flasks, so very, very challenging. And a fun boss. Ironically, that boss can be really, 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 really hard, and I have not been able to do it without healing, and I tried. I get it a good 10 to 15 attempts. I got real close, but I could not kill that boss without healing. She just hits you, dude. She hits you so much. I'm really looking forward to studying it, really looking forward to conquering it. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next installment. You take care now.